Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of All Access with me. And it's a gorgeous day in New York City. It's sunny, it's beautiful, and the turmoil in the world seems to have subsided, at least for this week. I know it seems that at times, we're at the mercy of a bunch of world leaders who are more concerned about posturing and aren't holding anything back. They're putting all sorts of crazy anxiety-inducing things on the table, but seems like, at least for the time being, things are a little bit more quiet than they have been, which is good. Channels are established so that no side does something crazy. It seems that's all good. And hopefully there will be some quick resolution to the situation on the ground over there. Much to discuss about that, but not at the moment. Today I want to focus on the Avalanche, the developments in the Avalanche universe. Of course, one of the big developments in my world and in my life was the opening of the Avalanche offices. So we have a brand new office. We are growing, and it's fantastic to be in that position. And it's wonderful to get back into the office much more regularly. And because the new digs are nice, there's a lot of people, a lot of engineers that I hadn't had a chance to work with in person have been showing up. So it's been wonderful to have that start to happen. At the same time, other people are starting to show up to their offices as well. And many of the meetings that I've been having via Zoom and so on with various people in Manhattan are now in person, and it's a very different feel. And one thing I can report from all of that, I can't tell you any of the names and any of the entities involved, not at the moment, but one thing I can tell you is that this asset class is well established. So it's here to stay. There is just no, there's bans and so on and so forth. They're just, sure, there might be all kinds of restrictions placed on all sorts of financial things. We just saw that with Russian assets, Russian central bank assets. But a blanket ban on crypto, etc. These are they're going to be very hard to enact. And this asset class is here. Lots and lots of people are very excited. And if you think the run up until now was big, then all I can say is you lack imagination. You haven't seen a big run up until you've seen actual big financial institutions come into a space. So there's a lot of excitement up ahead. I'm really excited. I think I ended up, doing this timing of the launch of Avalanche just right, and so I think we're poised for a lot of growth in the crypto space. So let me tell you a little bit about the various things I'm seeing. Of course, all of a sudden my AV system just crashed. So here we are. There's a huge lag in it, but here we are. I want to talk to you first about an interesting report that came out. This is from Haseeb Qureshi. Haseeb is with Dragonfly, and that's an independent fund that invests in everything in the crypto space, and they invest in a whole lot of coins. Full disclosure, they invested in us as well. But Haseeb is known for his command of the technical space. Of all the VCs I have spoken to, he is one of the top few in terms of his understanding of the technical details of every single L1, every single L2, every single technical project. And he has an encyclopedic knowledge of the strategies of every project as well. So he is one of the people that I highly respect. I've always respected, even before any involvement with us. And he did what any normal person should have done, which is take the same verifiable, simple benchmark, apply it to a bunch of different L1s, and look at the performance. Because talk is cheap. Everybody talks. Everybody says, anyone can say anything. I'm doing a bazillion TPS. How hard is that? I just put on my blockchain a single hash, and it turns out behind that hash, there's a Merkle tree of a billion transactions, and it took me about a second to put it on, so I just did a billion transactions per second. There are all sorts of tricks like this. This is the simplest one. Many academic careers have been made around this little trick. There are many other chains pulling this trick. It's the world's dumbest trick. So the real thing that you want to do is you want to go to a chain, and you want to see how long it takes to do something of value, interact with an automated market maker. So no bullshit, just look at the L1 performance using a simple apples to apples comparison. And And lo and behold, in this tweet thread, if you look at all the numbers that Haseeb reports, buried in the middle somewhere is the fastest chain. And that fastest chain is Avalanche. So time to finality, according to his measurements, is 1.75 seconds. That's fine. I don't know how he's doing the measurement. I don't know how his harness works. Maybe signing time is there, etc. I don't know. But whatever he's doing it in an equivalent fashion for everyone. And from the get-go, we've always advertised 1 to 2 second finality. And if, this is what he's seeing. I am thrilled that we are the number one chain. I'm not the least bit surprised because our chain operates differently. Everyone else is going back to the same protocols from the 1990s. They're doing signature accrual. And signature accrual, the larger your validator set is, the longer it takes. The more decentralized you are, the longer it takes. And those people are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And Avalanche works differently. It does not involve all-to-all communication. Not every single validator has to have heard from every single other validator. That's what gives us our speed. And lo and behold, we're getting this 1.75 second finality. We are the fastest chain that anyone has measured. And that claim stands until somebody else comes up with another measurement. But I am thrilled to see this, not at all surprised, but very happy with the outcome, exactly as science would predict, exactly as anyone who understands the protocols would expect. So there's a bit of a lag. I'm not sure if you guys are, I don't know which view you're seeing, but let's go with this. There was a very interesting series of tweets. I thought I would steal them all to give my discussion today some structure. So this is from Zahir. I don't know who this Zahir person is, but he's certainly, or he or she is certainly an insightful person, and said that this month is going to be interesting for AVAX. And here are the reasons. The very first thing that they noticed is that there is an unlock coming up. This was the unlock that was yesterday. So this was in New York time. It was 7 p.m. yesterday. It already happened. And so there's a funny thing that happens about unlocks. This is a good opportunity to talk about unlocks. People freak out every time there's an unlock. They think that people were sitting in their offices, in their rooms, stuck, within an unlock schedule, itching to sell stuff and dump stuff on the market, do the sell thing. And therefore, whenever the moment hits, there's going to be a giant discontinuous drop in the price. This has never happened for any chain. Just empirically collect your historical data and look. This is just not how unlocks work. So first of all, it's just, this was what I think this is our 6th unlock or 8th unlock, whatever the number is. So there have been a bazillion unlocks, there have been some number of unlocks until now. And the people who own these new tokens that are being unlocked already own Avalanche. If they wanted to sell, they would have sold. And what happens is in these markets, the market ends up predicting or building into it, or what's called as pricing in. The market ends up pricing in the unlock activity. When the actual unlock happens and the selling takes place, the price generally does not move much. And this is true not just for Avalanche, it's true for just every other coin that I have actually looked at in terms of their unlock behavior. So that's just a fact. And so we have a funny saying around Ava Labs. We call these things bullish unlocks, and we expect that the unlock gives people anxiety. That's what happens. And prior to the unlock, there are always these busybodies. Those people you met in high school, they're always like anticipating stuff, doing crazy things. It's like, oh, I think the teacher's going to do this, so I'm going to do that. And then I'll actually maybe double do this. Like maybe my friend will anticipate that the teacher will do this, therefore I will anticipate that. And it becomes this insane game of anticipations. And they start doing lots and lots of crazy stuff. So none of that is called for. And anyway, so the one final bit of alpha I can leak over here is we actually can see which tokens are locked. Anyone can see, you too can see which tokens are locked on chain. The right way to do this is to look at the disposition of those tokens. most of those tokens, huge percentage of those tokens, are staked. They're locked already. Like, even if the person were to receive the right to sell these things at 7 p.m. yesterday, they have already staked the coins for a long period of time. Most of these people are quite happy with long staking periods, collecting their staking rewards. So the coins, if they were to go onto the market, they'll go onto the market according to whatever regular schedule they go onto. So all this anxiety about unlocks is something I just don't understand. It's something that the public has to kind of realize, hey, these things, they have a certain behavior. The chain makes it very easy for anybody in public to figure out the disposition of the coins, and these things should not generally be there should not generally be an anxiety-inducing event. But prior to the unlock, we typically see some selling activity, and so that's we saw some of that with Avalanche, I think. And but then the unlock happened, and here we are, and the coin's price is doing, at least since last night until now, it did quite well. I think I can say that. So that's all I can say. Okay, so yeah, he's saying historically these have not been an inhibitor to price. To the contrary, historically, I think post unlocks, it's been bullish. And let's see, and this is the last unlock on the calendar. So let's see. So the second thing he's pointing out is that this Avalanche is not a stagnant ecosystem. At times I wish it were. At times I wish I could follow what's going on top of Avalanche better than I do now. There are a bazillion things that take my attention away, sadly. A lot of it is coding. A lot of it is technical stuff that we're doing. And some of it is strategy for planning for the future. Some of it is there's all sorts of other ancillary things, like the Avalanche Summit coming up in Barcelona, planning for it, inviting people to it, etc., etc. So in any case, I wish it were a little slower at times, but it's a thriving ecosystem. There's a lot happening. And so here is pointing out that people like the red coin, and there's been a lot of bridge volume, he says. And I don't know how this is measured. I don't know how total bridge volume is measured. I don't know where these numbers are coming from. The numbers I do know are the TVL numbers in the bridges. And you can see that here. This is the list I understand. And we are number one. The Avalanche bridge is the number one bridge in terms of value inside the bridge. So about $6 billion worth of assets have traveled from Ethereum to Avalanche. And so they're on the Avalanche ecosystem. There's a lot more going back and forth, and perhaps his measurements capture that. So sometimes people come into Avalanche, carry out their whatever functionality, and then they go back to Ethereum. That might be. So I'm really excited about this. And there are many other exciting things in the year ahead that will allow us to increase these TVLs even further. So I'm really excited. And this is great. It's just we're number one there. So let's see. There's a lot of people coming in to build subnets on top of us. He's picked out two here. He's mentioning Harmony, and he's mentioning Bank of America. Bank of America released a report examining Avalanche. It's very, very favorable, of course, and it's worth a look if you haven't seen it. And they talk about all of the features and why Avalanche is unique in the sea of 8,000 mostly copycats coins. So, yeah, he's pointing out that we've been able to attract some of the high quality projects, absolutely. And subnets is where the growth is going to be happening. And so there is this Soluna AVAX thing going on, right? Solana, Luna, and AVAX. These are the three chains that have something unique about them. So Solana is, I think I mentioned this on a podcast. All three of us were on the same podcast with some folks from Ethereum. And it was a wonderful podcast. I think maybe it was about a month ago. I mentioned there that Solana is doing something really cool by engineering and pushing to the limits the engineering of a signature accrual protocol. Luna is doing something entirely different. They've got a stable coin, an algorithmic stable coin, something that I find really interesting, and something that I believe is actually underexplored as well. So there are some. There's MakerDAO, of course. And then the number 2 that I would name would be Luna, or in fact, it might actually be switched by now. It might be Luna as number 1 in terms of total value, and MakerDAO is number 2. So they're doing something really interesting, and Avalanche is bringing new tools, new science, new protocols, and new engineering into the mix with new business development. So I'm really excited. This is a great combo. You're going to see another crop, another generation of coins with a different architecture, some of them, and with different unique features. Go and tackle this big puzzle. I keep saying this, I'll say it again. There's about $700 trillion worth of assets out there. These are actual assets in the economy, in the traditional economy. And I say this so that 10 years from now, people will be able to have a clip of me mentioning these numbers, which will look tiny, because there's going to be a crap ton of virtual assets that are going to be created. These numbers are going to look minuscule in comparison to the size of the economy then. Think, for example, of NFTs. They bring value. They're not part of that 700 trillion. And how much is the total net worth of the blockchain space? It's about 2 trillion right now. So there's a lot of growth. Every single dime of that 700 trillion will end up on a blockchain. Why? Because every single person behind it wants the highest reach for their asset. I want to trade with the globe. I don't want to be artificially limited. I don't want, whatever it is, my broker's like Rolodex to be an artificial limitation to how widely I can cast my net, to how widely my reach is going to be when I go to trade this thing. So I want all of my assets to be on a blockchain. Now, it turns out I don't have that much, but there are people out there with large and with huge amounts of assets, starting with real estate of different kinds, starting with all sorts of other things. And it's high time to place it on blockchains. And so that growth is going to happen, and the chains that can absorb that growth are going to be the ones that benefit the most from them. Okay. Oh yeah, he's pointing out that Avalanche is coming into its first major conference and will likely go all out, and that's true. I don't know what that means. We're going to go all out. It's going to be fantastic. I'm excited about Barcelona. This is in the 3rd week of March 21 to 25th. The tickets have been sold out. There is a meme going around of Avalab's employees acting like Hodor. We're getting pelted by direct messages saying, hey, can you find me a ticket? Can you find me an extra ticket? Can you open up to this and that? Sadly, the tickets are sold out. But it's going to be fantastic. I'm really excited. Barcelona is a wonderful town. Spain is a fantastic country. And the timing is great. And I cannot wait to go to this conference. It looks like there's going to be, at least a few thousand people there, all gathered around Avalanche. And I also took a hand in organizing some portion of the talks so as to make sure that there's great value there, kinds of people that I would like to see and hear from, and the topics and discussions, they run the whole gamut from everything from technical stuff, highly technical stuff, less technical stuff, to regulatory stuff, business stuff, NFTs, of course, DeFi, of course, in great depth, and so on and so forth. So, and new business cases, all sorts of new applications. So I'm really excited about this. He's right. We're going to go all out. And then after we go all out, then we'll go out in Barcelona. It's going to be a fantastic place. There's been loose speculation of a large business moving on to a subnet. I haven't heard of this. If there has been, I am shocked and appalled, because that's not supposed to be a large business. It's supposed to be a lot of large businesses that are moving on to a subnet. And now I'm going to get killed by my team for leaking too much. But and this will set the tone for the chain in a very real way. Yeah, of course it will. This is going to be the year of subnets. You're going to see a trickle here, a trickle there. You're going to see some exemplary applications that we push out, followed by really big use cases. It's going to be fun. So, well, Avalanche has some of the best upcoming announcements, I guess. I don't know. For any major token, maybe. And there's real reason to believe that this hasn't materialized in the price. Okay, that's his opinion on the price. Looking next to its cohort, it has held well. It's been steady at any sign of positive development. Okay. So this is where I think he nails it. It's a combination of strong community. That's really all it takes. It's the strong community. That's where the key is. And committed backers. Yeah, we're in it for life. I'm in it for life. This is going to be fantastic. We're going to show the world that many of its concerns about blockchains were wrong. These are not slow databases. They can outdo, outperform, and lead to much better, much more democratized outcomes compared to centralized solutions. Outperform centralized solutions. Just think about that. We outperform Visa on an average day. I can't outperform them at peak. At their peak, they're very high. But at the moment, I can outperform them on average. And that's a pretty darn good situation to be in. So in any case, so he points out strong community. That's really the key. Committed backers. Yeah, okay, there's me and there's a bunch of other people who are working all around. It's not, just besides Avalanche, there's a gazillion by now. Like the number of calls I have to do per week is just insane. There's a lot of different companies building really exciting things on top of us. It's EVM compatible. EVM is where it's at when it comes to smart contract development and deployment. I'm really a huge believer in it. Not because it's beautiful. It is not. Not because it has made the kinds of decisions I would have made. I would have made decisions that would have led to a virtual machine that's far faster to implement and far faster to execute. I think there have been some mistakes in the EVM design. But because there's so many educated people in how to use the EVM, how to write Solidity programs, and there's so much material on how to teach people to write smart contracts, use it for the EVM. So I think that really is a huge, huge plus, and we create a very strong community together with other EVM-based solutions. So Ethereum and Avalanche together create a very nice EVM-based community that fosters these developers. The devs who learn Solidity and start going down a career path know that they can look to us as well as Ethereum, as well as all the other EVM-based systems as a source of employment, as a destination for deployment. And of course, we provide new primitives, and key among those primitives is this new architecture based on subnets. So where does this lead us? Redcoin good. I think he's right. Redcoin is good. All right, so there was this report. It's worth a look. I'm not going to summarize it for you, but Mastercard is, just recently released a report that says Avalanche is building the road to crypto hypergrowth with Avalanche, and they're not joking. It's time for hypergrowth. We are stuck at a fairly small, number of not a modest number of users. Crypto is no longer niche. It's going more mainstream, but there is a huge amount of growth ahead of us, and we're angling to capture that growth. So I'm really, really excited. We have the right architecture at the chain level to create an environment that suits every single person on top. We're not jamming everybody into the same chain. You're going to see more and more of this. And in fact, even in this podcast, I'll talk a little bit more about it. Oh, here's an exciting development. FTX added support for native Avalanche USDC. So stablecoins are a key component of every single chain. And the fact that FTX now supports USDC natively is fantastic. You can withdraw USDC onto Avalanche directly. You don't have to bridge it. So there is also USDC.E. That .E at the end refers to an asset that's been bridged over from Ethereum, E for Ethereum. So don't confuse things. Don't make the mistake of sending USDC.E to FTX. That's not, their address is for accepting native USDC. So don't get yourself into a pickle there. But it's wonderful to have native assets. It's great to have native assets for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is reducing dependence on software. You typically want, from a system engineer's perspective, you want as small of what we call a trusted computing base as possible. So if there's some value behind an asset, you want the amount of code protecting that value to be as small as possible. And in the case of a native asset, it's a lot smaller than a bridged asset because the bridge is not in the way. So that's one good thing. From my selfish perspective, I would much rather have people hold USDC than hold a bridged asset, because the TVL then accrues to us. If you hold X.E for any X, that X is locked on Avalanche, but it's also existing on another, in this case, .E says it exists also on Ethereum. So I would like to have some separation so that we can understand the size of our economy and make sure that what's happening on Avalanche gets tallied under the Avalanche column. So we're going to be changing the way we do some of the DeFi rewards to favor native assets. So gear up for this. You'll get plenty of warnings, so don't panic or whatever. But gear up for changing the nature of your stable coins, especially because the rewards are going to be better for natives than for bridged assets. So we're going to give you lots and lots of literature on this, on how to convert. It should be super easy, and there are tools like Platypus, which I'm going to touch upon later on. There are tools like Platypus that you can use to very efficiently convert your stables of one kind to another stable. So go from USDC.E to USDC. At the same time, this new other thing happened, which is Binance, just a few days after FTX, ended up enabling C-chain USDT deposits. So Tether, native Tether, was enabled by Binance. So again, everything that I said about USDC and USDC.E applies to this as well. So now you can take Tether directly onto Avalanche. This is a fantastic situation to be in for as a user. You want to be able to take assets directly onto the chains on which they're supported. It is great that we're getting all of this filled out in our ecosystem. There is, this is actually a big announcement. WireX is now supporting us. 4.5 million users of WireX now have access to AVAX. And this is a good situation. And you can get a debit card, a crypto-enabled debit card from WireX, backed by AVAX, I believe. This is, I think, a really exciting topic. And I want to take a moment and tell you the story of Dexalot price discovery. I am sure you all are familiar with the concept of high fees. I am sure you realize that at times chains have to have high fees. So when everybody wants to use the chain, you really have two options. You either just offer everybody a very low fee, in which case everyone will want to use it at the same time. You'll never be able to push back on anything, and you will have to then either delay or drop transactions. If you delay or drop financial transactions, you are playing a very, very dangerous game. You're going to make some people really irate. You might cause millions to billions of damage if you drop the wrong transaction. You really need to be able to tell apart what's valuable from what's not as valuable. And there's only one way to do that. That one way is to say to people, hey, you're going to have to indicate just how valuable this transaction is to you. And the way to do that is by asking them to pay fees, high fees on occasion. So that's a little diversion, but bottom line is, if a chain does not have fees that go up and down, that chain is broken. So we have fees that go up and down. Luckily, they are down most of the time. But on occasion, we would spike. And there were some occasions that would reliably cause huge spikes. Now, what are those occasions? There's one particular case that I took a look at, I would say maybe 6 weeks ago. And those cases have to do with the Avalanche new token launches. So when a new project launches a token on Avalanche or wherever, they typically do something very simple. They say, okay, well, we'll create a pool on, let's say, Pangolin or Trader Joe. They create an AMM pool, and they drop their tokens at some point in time into that pool. Now, the user community knows this. And if you understand how these AMMs work, how these DEXs work, you should understand that when the coins are first dropped, the price is going to be at great odds with the supply and demand curve. So suppose there's a token there and its rightful price is $5. At the moment it's dropped into the pool, it's going to start at something really, really small. And if you're the first person to trade that token, you end up buying that token for dirt cheap. So that's why right around the time of these token launches, everybody is on the chain. And they're issuing gazillions of transactions to be the first person to buy this token for, let's say, fraction of a cent, so they can later sell it at around $5 when its price has gone up. So this was causing big spikes for our fees. In fact, this was the primary cause for fee spikes on Avalanche. So I ended up getting a couple of people together, some of them including some professors from Cornell who are very well known in finance circles as the experts in market microstructures. And all together, we ended up taking a quick look at this area, and the Dexalot team ended up implementing a solution for doing price discovery in a manner that does not place an enormous amount of strain on the chain. So what Dexalot does, in fact, so they came up with something. Let me just tell you that part. And then we went back to Avalanche, and the Avalanche folks said, hey, this is wonderful. It's a great idea. We also don't want this craziness. We don't want a crazy lottery. We don't want to damage the chain that we operate on. We don't want to put undue strain on it. We would love to use whatever you come up with, except we don't know if it works. So why don't you prove that it works by doing it for yourself? The ultimate act for any engineer. And to their credit, the Dexalot team said, okay, no worries, we'll implement it. They implemented it in no time. It's just amazing in how little time they ended up implementing this price discovery mechanism that I'll talk to you about in a second. And then they deployed it for their own chain, for their own token release. For the Alot coin, A-L-O-T coin, ended up being sold using Dexalot itself. So that was a very good way of doing dog fooding. Those of you who know medieval armies, there was a tradition then for every cannon maker to stand by their cannons when they are first fired. Right? It's a big, complicated thing. You have to cast this cannon, and if you screw up, the cannon's going to explode when you actually try to do something with it. And so you have to stand right by it when you light the fuse. And so the Dexalot team did exactly that, and it worked beautifully. They ended up selling their coins at some price, I forget what it was, and that price was the dominant price, was within 3% of the next day's price. So price discovery worked beautifully, absolutely beautifully. And now Avalanche is planning to use it for 6 or 7 new tokens that are going to be launched. So I am thrilled about this outcome. And I'm telling you all this stuff, not just to say, hey, there's cool stuff happening, which I think you kind of knew, but you should know anyway. Not to say that Avalanche, the ecosystem, is at the forefront of coming up with new things in blockchain, which you also kind of knew. But also to say, hey, there's like a lot of cool stuff happening here. Hang on, I was going somewhere with this. I forgot the end of my sentence. Anyway, so I wanted to tell you these things. I really, for the first 2 things, wanted everybody to know that, hey, there's a lot of cool new native applications coming on, and a lot of fast reaction, quick reaction to scientifically important problems. You don't see us, pontificating for months on end. You don't see us paralyzed. You don't see us, doing whatever. You just see us solving problems in practical ways. And I think this is one of the core values of our ecosystem. So we move fast, and we move with the best of science. We move with the best of scientists, and the result speaks for itself. So what did Dexalot do? They ended up implementing a central limit order book. They end up opening the order book. It's very similar to the way that new things are listed on any other order book. So there is a period of time when you collect bids and asks, and the bids and asks are not matched. So you end up seeing in the order book the various orders, and at some point the matching occurs, and everybody who crosses the price ends up getting matched. And then from then on, you have an orderly order book where the bids and asks do not cross the spread. So that's in a nutshell my very short summary of what happened with Dexalot. It's a very cool thing. I think the story speaks for itself. 6 weeks from problem identification to problem solved. And while I tell you this story, I'm actually doing a great disservice to the ecosystem, because at the same time, Trader Joe also launched their own price discovery scheme. and without any coordination with me or anybody else I know. So unbeknownst to me, they have their own solution. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I am told that it's also a very effective solution. So we got two different ways of approaching the same problem, done at around the same time, all stemming from essentially a whole bunch of communication that happened over Twitter out in the open, and it's wonderful to see. So I'm thrilled. I'm super thrilled about the outcome here. I hope to see more of this kind of collaboration and friendly competition. And then there's Crabada. So I have yet to check out these crabs. Half the people at Ava Labs are super excited about these crabs. I'm not much of a game person, but this play-to-earn model seems to have a lot of traction. I'm told that there are wholesale countries where villages are playing to earn a whole bunch of games. Crabada is one of these, and the thing is, this is an isolated game. It need not be executing on exactly the same chain as everything else where the DeFi activities are taking place. So it makes sense for it to have its own subnet. Subnets were invented exactly for uses like this. So they are going to be building their own subnet. It's called the Swimmer Network, and the Swimmer Network is now real. There's a test net, and people are playing with it. And I am thrilled to have this online. I'm thrilled to show to the world, look, I kept telling you about how to scale, kept telling you that the naive ideas that graduate students get about sharding, etc., they are not going to work well for the blockchain universe. What I think will work well is functional sharding, functional division into separate chains, and that's exactly what we're seeing with Crabada. Okay, so now we're getting towards the end. There is another exciting development, and this has to do with Platypus. Now, Platypus is a brand new system. It's native to Avalanche. It's also very novel and interesting. It does its own. It has its own mechanism for stable swaps, for very low slippage swaps that are ideal for stable coins. And it's already accrued, I think, about $1 billion of value on top. I'm super thrilled. I haven't had a chance to look at exactly how it works internally, but everybody who uses it is thrilled by the fact that that slippage is so low. So what's happening on top of Platypus is that there are now 3 different systems. One of them is called Echidna. The other one is YieldYak, which you might have seen in other settings. It's a yield aggregator and DEX aggregator on top of Avalanche. And then there's Vector. So what Platypus allows you to do is it allows you to take your PTP and convert it into VePTP, which is essentially the staked version of PTP. So you can stake your PTPs and earn yields on it. And these 3 systems are now doing that staking for you and rewarding you with their own tokens. So it's a very, very interesting system. And I'm still trying to get my mind wrapped around it. It's kind of like a Keynesian beauty contest. So if you know what that is, it's essentially a beauty contest where you win if the candidate you picked is the candidate favored by the majority of the people in the audience. In a regular beauty contest, you would presumably vote with your heart. You would say, this thing is the most beautiful thing I've seen, given my tastes. In a Keynesian beauty contest, because your financial rewards are at stake, you don't want to vote according to your own tastes. You want to vote according to what you perceive the crowd's tastes to be. I think there's an element of that. I think you want to be going with the system that most other people will be using. And so it has that element maybe to some extent. Maybe there's an element of vampire attacking each other among these 3. But in any case, there's something interesting going on here. That's all I can say. And I don't know what makes sense financially. I just find this area fascinating, and it's worth a look. I will try to make some time in the next, I don't know when, because my time is going up to the Avalanche Summit is going to be completely booked. But if I had some free time, I would look into this stuff because it is fascinating and there's something really cool going on. So, and I'm thrilled to have all of this activity on top of the Avalanche chain. I'm not seeing anything similar in other chains. There's a bit of, stagnation going on others, and I'm excited about what's happening here. So what's there to close on? I don't know. I've been talking for 45 minutes. It's a world in turmoil as usual, and a lot of interesting lessons are to be drawn. I'm still digesting the news or the aftermath of SWIFT, the world's payment system, being closed to Russia's central bank holdings. And I want to put aside all emotion and all sort of political consideration to the side and focus on the fintech impact of that. And I'm not sure what that means. There's a lot to be discussed there, and I don't know what other countries, what other sovereigns are going to do, and what lessons they're going to draw from seeing what happened with SWIFT. So, I wish we didn't have to learn any of these lessons, of course. Let me just preface that with that, that I wish we lived in a much more stable, much more calm, much more peaceful world. But that aside, I think there is certainly some lessons to be drawn, and it's going to be an interesting universe for crypto, because crypto is certainly part of the financial infrastructure now in a way that cannot be cast aside or banned. So we're going to see an interesting set of developments in the next year. Probably all good for crypto is what I think, or mostly good, definitely mostly good for crypto. So we'll see. There might be more regulatory interest, or there should be more regulatory interest. If I were a regulator, I'd be curious about, whether or not people are using crypto to get around sanctions. I think they won't be able to. I think the regulatory regime we have in the West is sufficient, so we don't need to be panicking about, the age-old narratives about crypto being a way to get around sanctions. I can say so much more about this, but I'll spare you the details. It's going to be an interesting world going forward. I hope you all are doing well. I am thrilled that the people that we had in Ukraine who work on Avalanche are safe. So if they are watching, hello to you both. And the two of them we have made sure are doing well. And and overall, I hope that you all are having fun. You all are are looking forward to an exciting new future with blockchains gaining more and more adoption across the world. And having said all that, I think I have not had a single bite to eat all day. It is, I think, almost 2 p.m. I'm going to wrap up today. And we used to take more questions. I will be taking more questions from the audience next time. And but for now, I think I want to go and eat something and get my voice back a little bit. And I'll talk to you in a week. And I'm very, very excited about the Avalanche Summit. Do consider, I think there are no more tickets at the moment, but perhaps there will be ancillary activities just around the summit. There might be other meetings around the summit. So do consider coming. And I shouldn't say this, but if anybody wants to crash the party, then they are welcome to crash the party. Or they're not. I shouldn't say this. No, they're not. You're not welcome to crash the party. I don't want to be beaten up by my business team. But yeah. So, but when I was a grad student, we would go to conferences without necessarily, we would find a way to get in. So, on that thought, thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to seeing all of you online and potentially at the summit as well. Take care.